Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Perspectives. I'm Zoe, this is Scott, and today we have a special guest, Melissa Faith Ramirez. Hi, Melissa, welcome.
Aloha, everyone. Thank you so much for having me on.
Pleasure.
It's our pleasure.
Melissa is a transformative guide who lives in Hawaii, and I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about your work, Melissa, and how that works and what is a transformative guide.
So good. So essentially, I walked my journey to self-realization and continue to walk it because that's what we do to the last breath. And I'm now in a space where I am actually holding space now, and I'm guiding others that are now on their journey to self-transformation. And what is self-transformation or self-realization? It's the understanding that we actually are these limitless, multidimensional beings, and anything is possible. We've just been conditioned to think otherwise. We've been conditioned with different belief systems that no longer serve, or perhaps patterns or traumas that we've acquired in our upbringing. I help you release those, look at those, heal them, and then create space to start planting the seeds of the reality that you do desire to live in.
Amazing.
Wow. Now you're in Hawaii, right?
Yes, currently.
And you're working with COVID patients?
I am. About 3 weeks ago, I had a dream with a woman that I went to college with about 20 years ago. I haven't seen her since. And good old Facebook found her, and we communicated, and she had mentioned that she had just been diagnosed with COVID. And we got into a very quickie conversation about the work that I do. And it was quite powerful to see how in 15 minutes, her entire perspective around why she received the illness shifted. Right, we started the conversations with her having a lot of fear about the unknown, right? It was right at the beginning of this entire, when the pandemic first hit New York. And there was a lot of fear of death, the unknown, no cure. And by shifting her perspective and helping her understand that it's actually a gift instead of a curse, it was a gift for her to look within, look at those things that no longer serve, and then give herself the chance to create that next chapter in the reality that she wants to create it in. So because there's no resistance in that moment when the patients are with me, there's a massive shift in transformation happening. And some patients actually, so, there's duality in everything. Some patients I actually had to help cross over, right? Because that was just their time when their souls decided to say they no longer want to live in the reality such as Earth. They're ready to go into their new reality outside of this body. And I would help them cross over, or some may call it a death doula. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow, how does that work, Melissa? I haven't actually heard of that before. Yeah. What's involved?
Yeah. So the crossing over? So it's interesting because I was in a really interesting, about 3-4 years ago, I was in Colombia, in my home country, and I was in a situation with an uncle of mine who was being abused by his partner. His house was sold without his awareness. I arrived at my uncle with no legs, and there was medical malpractice. We ended up finding out later, and he was stealing his pension at the same time. So I was in a very serious legal case with my uncle, and he was going in and out, right? We had a couple of death scares with him, and the final one, I was with him, and I'm raised Catholic. I call myself a recovering Catholic, though. I have a very different conversation of religion now.
But go ahead, carry on.
And as he was dying, the doctor said, "That's it. He's got a couple more hours left." I was with him on video, and I was channeling. I was channeling the words of Jesus, which weren't normally my words at that time, and I gave him the right amount of words that he needed to cross over in peace, because he was very much in an anxious state at that moment. And that was my first time experiencing something like that. So it's not something I've been searching or studying. It's something I've just been surrendered to. And how it works is just being fully present with the individual, right? And we all have this gorgeous gift where we can connect with another when we just get out of our own way, when we release those belief systems of judgment, or, what do they think of me, when you're really unconditionally present for someone. And by being unconditionally present for someone, you can just hold space for whatever it is that they need in order to help them cross over. And sometimes it's around religion, and sometimes it's around an old belief, but generally it's around what they need to hear. How it works, it's just me being an open vessel for information to come through.
Wow.
How do you know you're channeling Jesus's words? I mean, this is what always gets me a little bit. It throws me for like a real, fly wraps me a little bit. Like, how do you really know that? Or is that just, you tell me, I don't know.
Yeah, it's not my common language. I was raised Catholic, right? But it's not a language that I commonly speak any longer. And there's a shifting in the feeling of my body when I feel I'm channeling something other than myself. So it's two things. It's the verbiage that comes out, and sometimes my voice shifts as well. And the shifting in my physical body that I feel when it's not me, my ego mind that's present and speaking.
But I mean, it sounds, and again, I'm just a devil's advocate. I'm not doubting you, but it sounds like almost a bit pretentious to say I'm channeling Jesus. I mean, it's almost like blasphemous.
Yeah, as a Catholic, we would say that.
Cool with it, but I mean,
yeah. As a Catholic with deep beliefs that's blasphemous, it would be blasphemous. But if we take away the religion aspect, take away the ego, I call religion spirituality with ego. We take away the ego to the conversation. Jesus was just one of the many teachers that we had on this planet, right? Jesus, Buddha, Ganesh, right? Mother Teresa, right? And to say it's blasphemous means that we're less than, right? This is something that's more than we are. Then it takes away from the idea that we're actually all interconnected, right? And that's why I feel religion came in to divide us and help us think that we are not equal. We're not actually together. So by me channeling Jesus, it's just channeling an aspect of myself that is Jesus. Just as you have an aspect of yourself that is Jesus, and so does Zoe, and so does the kitten, right? It's about understanding that we're all diamonds, and we have all these different facets because we're all interconnected to each other. And each moment we're choosing to play with reality we want to play. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. Very interesting.
I guess that's you were mentioning about being multidimensional. Is that part of what you're talking about when you talk about that you're able to channel different aspects of yourself? Is that what? Yeah. Does that make sense, Scott? That we have?
No. I mean, only because like you guys, listen, I have a great respect for both of you girls, but I can understand that you guys have experienced things. So I get that. So I can listen and learn, but I've never experienced anything remotely near that. So it's hard for me to identify. So I don't mean to be knocking what you're doing. I'm just saying that I'm sure there's other people out there that don't really understand it. That's why I asked that question, not to be disrespectful of what you're doing.
No disrespect.
How do you know? Can you make it clearer for me? That's all.
And this is where we need to start shifting the way we learn, right? Because we, again, are conditioned to learn through our mental minds, right? You're listening to a story from somebody and you're trying to connect it to something you know, right? But you don't know because you've never experienced it. You have nothing to relate it to. So when you have nothing to relate it to by using the ego mind, then you're just deflecting what you can just naturally absorb. So instead of trying to piece the puzzle together, allow your body to feel the words that are coming out. Allow yourself to use the other senses, right? Perhaps you taste, right, what's coming through, or perhaps you feel in your body what's coming through. Perhaps you may get like a visual as I'm speaking to you with what's coming through. So it's more about surrendering to the knowledge that's coming, right? So whenever we sit in front of a guru, right, a master teacher, we're generally not interjecting, asking questions. We're just absorbing, right, what the guru, what the teacher is teaching. And if we give ourselves permission to do that with each other, not having to be a guru, I mean, we really are all gurus anyways, but then we're doing what we would call active listening, right? From a psychological perspective, right? Proactive listening. And proactive listening is me getting myself out of the conversation, me getting my ego and what I desire, what I expect to come from this conversation, right? So it's surrendering and just allowing one to absorb, right, what comes through. So do you want to give it another go and see what you absorb?
What a sponge I really am. You know, I get what you're saying. I kind of feel like with this whole quarantine that's going on, it's easier for somebody like me to buy into these concepts that I feel kind of a little outside of my range.
Yeah.
Because I'm not out there in the world every day being distracted by what I'm comfortable with.
Good. Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like the focus is, I'm forced to focus more. I'm forced to, you know, there's more time to just process a conversation that we're having now.
Good.
You know, than to just get onto the next thing in the course of your day. And before you know it, it's just another thing that happened today and it doesn't have any real precedence.
Yeah. And that's a big reason why COVID's here, to force us all to do that, right? For all of us to fully understand that we're in the go, go, go and the do. Like, it makes sense. New York got hit so hard. I love my New York, right? Don't get offended, people. This ain't about getting offended, right? It makes sense. New York is a very conditioned, dense society. Like, we're raised to be fucking hard knocks, right? Excuse my language if we're PG here, but we're raised to be fucking tough. We're raised to have thick skin.
I'm just trying to get to the fifth dimension, and you're using this vile language. Really throwing me.
Oh, we've got vile language in the fifth dimension too. It's just fluttered with fairy dust and hearts. So, you know, New York getting hit so hard makes sense. Like, we need to get through that thick coat that we've been conditioned, that armor to put on. You know, I went through my process because 5 years ago I heard a calling, go to Hawaii, and I was like, holy shit, I'm really losing my mind now, because I was hearing a lot of voices and I'm thinking multiple personality disorder. Well, lo and behold, years later I realized, oh, I'm just receiving messages. But because I was really conditioned and very Catholic, right? This is blasphemous. How could you bring the word of God? How could you be the one, right? Well, I did my work here in Hawaii in a space that's not so dense, right? This is a complete opposite. Like, this is my outfit going to work every day, right? When I used to be stilettos, you know, my pencil skirt, and there was a proper way to do everything. Things are very different here. So I was granted the space to do my self-healing, right? New York, it's hard to do so, you know, especially as an empath, someone that feels energy and emotion, you know, from others. And all of us here obviously are empaths that we're having these conversations, right? So it's quite fascinating to watch how COVID is coming in from that perspective. Like, oh, you know, this space needs a little more scrubbing, right, than another space. And that's why it's going to get hit a little bit harder because, you know, us New Yorkers are going to get smacked around in the face a little bit in order to actually listen and learn. And that's just a human condition. It's a human condition. We got to fall on our faces and, you know, get kicked hard in order to wake up. That's where we're at.
Yeah. Melissa, can we talk a little bit more about the consciousness shift in relation to what's going on the planet at the moment with COVID-19? Can you elaborate a little bit more on that for everybody?
Sure. So we're currently living with what we call in a third dimensional consciousness. And third dimension is essentially, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. If I give you this, what do I get back? Right? It's conditional. There's expectations that are necessary in order for the third dimension to continue moving. And third dimension is as such because it's really a space for us as humans to be in school. I call Earth school, right? And this is a chance for us to go through these dualistic perspectives, which is I'm better, you're not. I'm good, you're bad. There's a yes, there's a no. There's a black, there's a white. We need to live in this duality, right? Go through our experiences, fall on our faces over and over and over. I sure as hell fall on my face a whole lot of times, right? And from falling on our faces, we learn our lessons and start recognizing the layers that we need to shed of traumas, of belief systems that don't serve, of patterns that we keep repeating in our heads that keep knocking us over, right? In order to be able to enter the fifth dimension. And what is the fifth dimension? The fifth dimension is the age of Aquarius, right? It's compassion, right? And it makes sense. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, 1960s. Look where we are right now, right? Like love and and compassion and collaboration, and you're a different skin color, but that doesn't matter because you're human and I'm human, and we're here to just help each other lift each other up and create our dreams and just do what we're supposed to be doing here. Like what we're supposed to be doing here is finding our passions, living our passions, and just having the time of our lives. That's really our mission as humans, to have the time of our lives. But because we have this third dimensional conditioning, it's pretty damn hard, right? I say there's a collective wound called I'm not enough, right? So when you have that I'm not enough wound in the back of your mind in a third dimensional state, it's very hard to move forward, right? So now our wonderful Corona came in. I love how they changed it from Corona to COVID, right? And this is a whole other conversation about what's happening of the information we're receiving, right? But Corona, in Spanish means crown, right? And the crown chakra, the chakra that's up here, is the one that allows us to connect to the divine. Our connection to the divine has been clipped because of religion, because of control. We've been told you can't have your own connection to God. How dare you? It's blasphemous. I remember being a little girl and having to go to church every Sunday religiously. And one day I was like 11. I protested. I'm in the middle of the living room. I'm like, absolutely not. I'm not going to church. I'm not going to church. Church is right here. I'm 11. It wasn't a logical thought. It was a demand. Like, church is here. And I got down on my knees and started talking to God. And that was like, what is she doing? Is she nuts? We're supposed to go to church. And it created a whole upheaval. But it started like a fire for me, where I was just like, wait a minute. This doesn't make sense. Why do I have to go to church? Why do I have to eat Eucharist? Why do I have to go and confess and get punished every time I'm confessing about a 25-cent bag of chips that I stole? I'll never forget that day, right? So it's quite fascinating to see this shift that's happening, that we're beginning to get the blinders off, right? I saw this a decade ago. I saw this when we first started this whole awakening to consciousness, is called, started happening back in like 2009, 2010. And I was losing my mind because no one was talking about this, right? But it's really beautiful that you guys have this show and we're able to bring this information because more of us are waking up to this reality. The reality that we've had blinders on. And those blinders have kept us limited and divided. And now, by understanding this, looking at our stuff, okay, Corona's here to help us go within and create our own connection to God. And some may call it Allah, and some may call it the universe. It doesn't matter what we call it. It's just a label. It's just a label, right? It's the whole understanding that there's a co-creator. There's something bigger than who I am. And we're working together. We're working together on this journey, right? I'm saying, what's up, God? I want to create X, Y, and Z. And God's like, okay, cool. Believe in it, have faith in it, and keep enjoying your life, and boom, it's going to appear. And that's how it happens. If we don't got shit in our way, we get out of our way, right? That's the easy process. But right now we're learning how to let go of all those layers, look at our stuff, realize, oh, it's kind of nice having dinner with my kids every night. It's kind of nice just snuggling on the couch in the middle of the day and not be inundated with phone calls and meetings and going here and there. It's kind of nice not sitting in traffic getting to work. It's kind of nice spending most of our days with people we don't really necessarily like. We're waking up to all these realities of what it means to get the essence of life, to get the juice out of life. And this is the journey we're on. And you know what? It's not like, oh, I reached fifth dimension. Now I'm an enlightened being. No, because while you're still in this physical body, you're still dancing. You're still playing. So you're going to fifth dimension and you're enjoying. Everything's great. And all of a sudden someone threw a tomato at you, but you're smiling because you're having a great day. And all of a sudden someone cuts you off and you're like, motherfucker, da, 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 da. And you go back into third dimension. And then something goes happen. And we do this. We flip-flop. We go back and forth, and that's the dance, and that's the game.
Yeah, the
And the more
difference
we
being
do it,
that most people aren't in that fifth dimension, so their dance is all done within this third dimension. So,
good.
like that's what I know. I mean, I
Yeah.
go through that all the time. Like almost like you said earlier, personality disorder. You know, I can go from like really focused to completely out of my mind, and then come back. But it's like when they say in Buddhism to be in the moment, right? Who's always in the moment? That's impossible. We would never get ahead if we were always in the moment. So we're always projecting. We're always looking back at what we previously learned or experienced. But it's just a matter of catching myself back there or up here and bringing myself back into the moment. It's a constant. It's a different dance. It's just it might even be the same dance, just without the fifth dimension. Like that element is not in. But I get what you're saying. I just
And these are also our labels, right? This is a message that's coming across in many different conversations, right? And there's no right or wrong way of saying it. Everybody is going to be receiving it, whichever way feels good for them, right? So I have, I don't know if you guys are aware of Dr. Joe Dispenza, right? Really great scientist.
Why does that name keep popping up on the show?
Because he brings this conversation to a space of practicality where it would make sense to someone who's still densely living in the third dimension.
Yeah.
Right? So what he's saying is the same thing I'm saying. I'm just using different verbiage, right? So I love that you made that comparison, Scott. Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Mm-hmm.
So Melissa, can you tell us a little bit more about what made you decide to get into healing work in the first place? Did you go through your own healing journey to get to that point where you wanted to help others?
Yeah. So I was that kid that always wanted to help. I was a Eucharistic minister. I volunteered at the shelter, and I brought home stray dogs, and it was just always in my nature, right? And in my parents' nature. I come from parents who are just like angels in a physical body, right? Kind of, we call my Mother Teresa, right? So being of service is something that was very like normal, right? In my home and my upbringing. But then as I got older, I started realizing that my being of service had like an unconscious attachment to it, right? Like I was kind of expecting something in return when I was being of service many times, or I felt like I was giving, and then I'd be depleted. And then when I needed help, nobody was around. And I'm like, this is fascinating. And then I would go deeper into the why me, I'm not good enough kind of phase. And then that brought me to my own different sets of purgatories that I've experienced. I've gone from physical abuse to sexual abuse to being in prison, near-death experiences. I mean, the list goes on and on. I'm writing a book now as we speak. And at the time, it felt devastating. All these experiences felt devastating. And I felt like I could not have a moment to breathe, because once one devastating experience finished and finally I was able to maybe get myself out of that hole just a little bit, another devastating experience would come, right? So it was like a domino effect. When I was in New York about 5 years ago, I was at a space where I'm losing my mind. I'm hearing voices. I was getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, just like that. I was feeling like the devil was after me, Catholic belief, right? And my family didn't know what was going on. I was a crazy one.
Sounds like there's a little cocaine involved. Just saying. Just
at
saying.
that time, actually, no. That was before that. that was a chapter before that, right? This chapter was more like I was on the cusp of leaving this earth because I was suicidal at this point, right? So I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. And I said, maybe this is a psychiatry thing. Maybe I'm really all fucked up and I need to go into a loony bin. All right, let me just go. I don't know what else to do. And I go and I sit with a psychiatrist, right? And the whole time I'm sitting with the psychiatrist, something felt off. It just felt like he was just asking me questions and ticking off boxes. And I could feel myself getting really uncomfortable with the experience. And it wasn't about me being labeled or judged. It was more like I'm observing something that didn't feel didn't feel good, didn't feel correct. And when he had his little piece of paper with his prescription medications and God knows how many freaking diagnoses, and I touched that little piece of paper to grab it, I projectile vomited on the psychiatrist. Like, it was not a thought process. There was no desire to vomit on another human being in that moment. But my body was like, absolutely.
Wow.
My body said, absolutely not. And that was the beginning of my healing journey, my conscious healing journey. Because I feel like before I was trying to heal myself, but I was healing myself with cocaine, alcohol, sex, whatever distraction I could possibly find, right? And shortly thereafter, I received a message, and it was a gorgeous voice that said, Melissa, go to Hawaii. And I was like, okay, I'm trusting it. And packed my bags, one-way ticket, and that was 5 years ago. Yeah.
First time I've ever heard of intuitive vomiting. Really? Heard some things, but wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was a reaction to what you felt was happening in that moment. You felt inappropriate.
I felt as though I was
or
going,
something, right?
I felt what came very clearly was, oh shit, I'm about to get medicated. Just like every other person that's experiencing the same exact thing I'm experiencing. And that vomiting was like a protest to the healthcare system that we're all under. I think we're all beginning to wake up to this
Pretty
fact,
much closed
right?
the door on that concept with that. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was me trusting my body, because all of our bodies have a sensory system to it, that if we give ourselves permission to listen to it, it'll help guide us, you know?
So,
you two can think that way. And I would never draw the connection between anything like that. Like, I would just think like, nerves or, whatever, tension, something. And then I had a reaction. I would never think of this whole psychological connection, or never.
We've been conditioned to think, oh, nerves are nothing, no big deal, just push through. You got to succeed, you got to go, you got to move, you got to go. When here we're saying, like, take a breath, feel into your body. And that's why it's so important. Like, we're now learning the importance of eating good food, right? Like, what we consume consumes us. If you're eating nurturing food, you're going to be able to give your body the resilience and the strength that it needs to be able to receive those messages. If you're eating shit, processed food, whatever else is going on, then your body becomes numb. And then, of course, you're not going to be able to hear anything. And of course, you're going to push through. That's all you know. We've been conditioned to just do that.
So, Melissa, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about what happened to you once you went to Hawaii. So you felt the calling intuitively to go there. What was your journey from that point onwards?
So my next question was, where am I going to get the money? Are you crazy? Come on. And I was actually arguing with this voice because that's what I do, right? So, and the money appeared. Someone had owed me a good chunk of change, and he recently got out of prison, so there came the money. So all these little things were coming through that were just signs of saying that this is what I need.
Sounds like such a love story, except the word prison kind of threw a big wrench in there. But anyway.
Love in the time of Corona,
Call me crazy.
Things just started falling together. My apartment, I was able to rent it out. I was able to get my things and all that fun stuff. And I came over, and I did a yoga teacher training when I first arrived on the Big Island. And the Big Island, I believe the islands of Hawaii represent the chakra system, right? So the Big Island is the root chakra, and the root chakra is your grounding, right? Like your sense of knowing, right? Your sense of power. And I believe each island emits the energy of that individual chakra, right? So it's fascinating. When I go to Maui, I feel like a complete heart expansion opening. Every time I go to Maui, it's just like love, 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 right? And here, Oahu is the throat chakra. So think about it, communication. Honolulu's here. This is where most of the exchange is going, right? And I was there, and I'm in a yoga teacher training. And when you're a yoga teacher training, I mean, you've got no time to yourself, right? You're yogaing and meditating for like 16, 18 hours a day. I'm in a jungle, in a place called Puna in Big Island. And in a meditation, I was told, go for a walk 5 miles barefoot. And again, I'm like, what are you talking about? I can't go anywhere for 5 miles. I'm having that whole conversation. And then the next day, and my teacher's like, guess what, everybody? We're giving you tomorrow off. You're going away on a little snorkeling trip, yada, yada. And I'm like, where is this place? And I find a little bit of service right in the middle of the jungle. And it's literally 5.0 miles to where I am. So on my way back, I started my journey. And on that journey, I took off my shoes and I could feel the hotness of the asphalt happening underneath my feet. And from 1 minute to the next, I felt like I was floating. There was nothing underneath me. And it was pretty hot. There was no cocaine involved. I was completely detoxed and clean. I guess I was high off of meditation. Huh?
Taking your word on it.
Right? And I'm walking, and at one point I look to the right and there's a forest, and the trees began forming into animals. Mm-hmm. And I'm watching these trees dance. And then I look over to my left, and then there's the ocean. It's cliffs into the ocean. And I felt this pull to go towards the ocean. And I'm kind of...
What you're saying is there's mushrooms.
Not this time, no. This is just me and my connection, right? And I'm being pulled, and I feel like I'm being pulled by my chest over towards the ocean, and I get right to the edge. And there's zero fear. It must be 50 feet going down. There's zero fear. And I'm just standing there in this moment of complete surrender. I look up to the sun, and I'm just screaming, what the F are you, God? And I'm just having this rage with God. And I'm surrendering and crying and releasing and recognizing all of my stuff, all of the times I've been victim, I've played victim, all of the times that I just continued this repetitive cycle of continuing to hurt myself. Like everything came up that I needed to release. And I'm screaming, and 1 minute to the next, a massive wave comes out of nowhere. I'm 50 feet up, smacks me in the face. I get jolted just a bit. I look back, all my things get taken off into the water, and I get shoved. And my fingers are gripping the cliff, and I'm looking down 50 feet, and again, zero fear. And it was like this surreal moment of what is happening. And I kept walking my way back to the jungle. And there were just these moments of it's time to let go. It's time to release. It's time to be who you desire to be. In the conditioned verbiage, I'm possessed. In the non-conditioned verbiage, I'm just surrendered. I'm just a vessel. Right. I'm just allowing myself to tap into whatever dimension, right, I need to tap into in that moment.
But did you know that that's what was going on when you were in that moment, or not at all? Only as you replay it and understand, as your journey unfolds, you can look back and see the significance of that moment.
In the moment, there was a complete surrender, and I felt that complete surrender. And it took off a layer, right? But then, of course, like sometime later, there were other layers I needed to work through. So I kind of buried that experience as just like a knockoff. But now I look at it that it was an exponential experience for just kind of like, it was like my first layer of saying, enough. Now really start working your journey. Like, shut up, start working your journey. Stop complaining, do this. You got this.
So, Melissa, would you say that, so was it mainly the yoga and the meditation that played the biggest part in your healing journey, or were there other modalities that you also sort of used during that time?
Yeah, so meditation is key. That's number one, right? Mm-hmm. And meditation doesn't have to be, I have to sit on a cushion and I'm so uncomfortable, right? And I can't stop my brain from thinking, right? There's a lot of misconceptions about meditation. What I love to tell people about meditation is just watching your thoughts, recognizing your thoughts are not you, watching them, putting them in the cloud, letting them go. So meditation was a huge, huge tool. Yoga as well, really getting into my body, my nutrition. I ended up becoming vegan. I really started connecting my emotions to the food I was eating. Habit. I started shifting my habits, right? I started really recognizing my habits and recognizing the habits that were no longer working and shifting out of those habits, creating new ones, watching my patterns, right? Doing the work. And doing the work means looking at your shit. We all got shit. We all got it, right? In some way, shape, or form. Whoever says they don't have shit is lying to themselves. They got a whole lot more shit than they think, right? So we got to look at our stuff. And a lot of the times it's not even just our stuff. It's our ancestral lineage stuff. You know, my work in Colombia with my uncle, I realized, oh my gosh, I'm here to clear. There's sexual trauma that exists. Me, my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, and many, many more before that I don't even know, but it exists because that's just the lineage that we've been traumatized by. So a lot of us that wake up first, so those of you out there that are popping cherries and you're like, am I going crazy because nobody else around me is experiencing any of this? You're good. You're good. Trust that you're good, my loves. Really just give yourself permission to soak in it. You're the first one to wake up. And the first child always got the hardest, right? And by being the first one to wake up, all it really means is just allowing yourself to listen. Just be present and just listen. And just being kind to yourself. We're not kind to ourselves, right? Listening to that voice inside that's constantly criticizing oneself, like switch it up, right? Switch it up to how much you love yourself and the beauty that does live within you and the person you do desire to become, right? And breathing, breath work. That was a huge tool that I used as well. And when I first started doing breath work, I realized I'm not breathing. I realized I was holding my breath a lot. And I started playing with different modalities of breath work. There's no one right or wrong. And I don't like to give examples of different types of breath work. And maybe you should try this one. No. Like if it feels, you'll feel it. I think I need to start doing breath work. Like, don't be Googling this stuff. Feel it and honor it when it comes, right? You'll feel like I got a little bit of breath work. Okay, what kind of breath work should I do? And that's when you go to Google, right? Breath work. First one that comes up, go for it. If you really want to give yourself courage, just feel it and allow the image or the visual, right, or the words to come towards you. But breath work was a massive, massive component because we are breath. That's all we really are. And I learned that here in Hawaii. We're called haoles, those of us that are not from Hawaii. And haole means one not of breath, right? Ha is breath and aole is without. And the reason why they call us haoles is because when the Hawaiians go to greet themselves, it's so amazingly beautiful. They touch forehead to forehead. And they take a deep inhale together and a deep exhale together. So they're really giving themselves permission to get connected and be present with each other. But they're us. We put, hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you. So they were like,
hey, take some COVID. How are you? Take some COVID-19.
You know?
I'm actually from Corona. How are you?
So they label the non-Hawaiians haoles, right? Without breath. So breath, yeah, one of the main tools in really finding oneself.
You mentioned something about watching your thoughts, and that was beautiful because I get like that connected right away. And the first time I struggled trying to meditate for so long. Like I would try and then I'd put it on hold because it would actually be completely fruitless. The effort would be just like this. It's disturbing because I can't shut it down. And not understanding that I might have been meditating. So I think you could take a nap and that could be meditation. Listening to your breath and you just said watching your thoughts. I mean, these are two things. If you can do that for 2, 3, 4 minutes, I mean, that's going to be, you're in a zone. I mean, if you can just do those two things, you're in a pretty cool zone, right?
Yeah. And the art of meditation is to understand that we are not our thoughts. That's the art of it. That's the whole purpose of it. Right? It helps us to disconnect from the conditioned mind, right? It helps us to understand that the mind is a mechanism to do something, right? And the heart is a mechanism to be, right? Dr. Joe Dispenza, love that man, talks about how powerful, how finally we're going back to the wisdom, right, of our ancient teachers, that it's the heart that actually is the intelligent being, right? But we've had it backwards, right? So the meditation is understanding that you are not your thoughts, tuning into your heart, having clarity to know what it is that you want. A lot of us don't even know what we want, right?
Yeah.
And then from there, directing the mind of what the mind needs to do to actually allow that creation to happen, right? So for beginner meditators, I always say, right, it's taking a nice deep inhale, nice deep exhale, following the breath, recognizing the air that's on the top of the lip on the exhale, right? We're feeling the rise of the chest, right? And then a thought's going to pop up, because that's what the mind does. We can't shut it down. We can't shut it down. The mind doesn't shut down. The mind is always on. That's its purpose, right? But the mind is always waiting for some sort of information in order to do. When we're living in an unconscious state, it's picking up things off the unconscious mind, which is generally things we don't want, right? Because we're not conscious to this, right? So in meditation, the thought will come up, and instead of getting hooked on the thought and then going down the rabbit hole, that's what we do, right? We put the thought in a little cloud, and we let the thought just go the way the clouds go. Nothing is permanent. Everything is temporary. And nature is a beautiful example of that, right? So yeah, meditation, a lot easier than we think it is.
Yeah, it's been such a powerful tool for myself as well. And that's definitely the key, is just not to attach to those thoughts and just to sort of observe them. And I like the cloud. I've heard of a leaf one, letting leaves float down the river, but I like the cloud one. I might try that one. Yeah. So Melissa, you've got a program that you've recently brought out. I'd love if you could tell us a little bit more about that and what's involved in your program.
Sure, thank you. So I work generally with private clients. I do one-on-one work, but I felt propelled these last couple of months to do work with groups. And I have a new online course that's coming up. It's starting May 1st, and I'm calling it Wild Women Unleashed. It's yummy. I had my beta with a great group of women that their lives were rocked. I can really say this program will shift you and bring you to a space of deep transformation if you allow it to. So it's really cool because it follows, I have it right here, a really gorgeous book called Women Who Run with Wolves. We're not reading the entire book. This is a book about myths and stories of the wild woman archetype, which we all have within us, some way, shape, or form. But we've been conditioned. We've been conditioned to think that it's bad, or it's taboo, or it's naughty, or all that fun stuff. So this course is for us to go into our cocoon as women and start unearthing these false pretenses of who we are as women, and really unleashing that power that that divine, feminine, delicious, erotic, sensual, passionate, nurturing, kind, creative power that we all have within us, and allow that to lead instead of these false belief systems that we've been served all along.
Do you need anybody to film anything there?
No, it's private. Just the ladies.
How about availability? Like, because when you're describing that all from a woman's perspective, that whole experience, right? I'm thinking that it's not that different than me struggling to meditate. Like, I have blocks. Yeah. And, I think women have blocks, like people have blocks. So whether you're male or female is irrelevant, whatever your blocks are. But the availability to want to get past them. So many people, we're just caught up in our everyday lives that's not even a registered thought about breaking up blocks. Right. We just know what we know, and we do what we do, and and then these different experiences happen when you're available to change and more, and to a different process. How important is simply the availability?
That's it. So this is where we're speaking to the same thing using different words. You say available, I say surrendered. And all that really means is the person gets out of their own way. That's all. And there's going to be moments when they get in their way, right? And then there's also going to be tools that they'll be learning in that process in order to start to get out of their own way. But it's not one size fits all, right? Because everybody's waking up gradually whenever they're ready to wake up, and Corona's here to like smack some people around, and maybe some people are going to need to get the Corona in order to get really smacked down, or maybe some people are going to need to get a cancer, or maybe some people are going to need to have we manifest, listen to me, ladies and gentlemen, we all manifest exactly what we need for our evolutionary growth. So now is your chance to see it for what it is and actually play the game, right? This game of consciousness, this game of evolution, and have fun with it. We're being served an opportunity to say, I'm done living in a rat race. I'm done being unhappy. I'm done being in a relationship that's not serving me. I'm done looking in the mirror and not knowing who I am. You gotta just say you're done. And if you're not, you keep getting served these lovely opportunities to keep waking you up. So it's your choice. You can choose to continue getting served these situations that can be painful. Or you could say, you know what? I think this woman's got something to say right now. I think this guy's got something. I think there's something I'm feeling in my body. And all you got to do is trust it. Not know what it is, not have even an understanding of what it is. But if it feels good, so even if it feels weird, surrender. And then you can
make it sound so easy, but we all know it's something profound has to initiate that.
And this is what I mean. Like, we are under a human condition. It's a human condition to have to go through change through travesty. It doesn't have to be that way. We choose it to be that way. Right? I remember the days when I said, it's not easy. It's not easy. It's not easy. But now that I'm on the other side, I'm like, oh my God, guys, stop killing yourselves. Stop killing yourselves. Okay. But that's your journey. That's your journey. Okay. I send you love. So there's no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong. If someone's like, I'm not listening to this stuff, there's nothing wrong with them. That's just their journey. Yeah. Okay. Send you love because it must be fucking painful. I send you love.
So Melissa, how would somebody sign up for your program if they were interested? Is it an online program or is it obviously at the moment?
Yeah. So we're having we have a private group online. And in that private group is where I'll be serving you information such as challenges, different types of exercises. It's intuitively guided. So we will be following the book. We're not reading the entire book, but I'm intuitively guided to pull out certain chapters on the unraveling of the process. We meet once a week via live video. And in that live video, answer all the questions. And we do a couple of deep dives with some of the women that are present. And then I also offer a 1-hour private one-to-one consultation in those 30 days when they're going to be needing that assistance in going a little bit deeper. Yeah.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
You know what's interesting here, ladies? This is a treat for me. I mean, this is really cool because all three of us have had our journeys are really different, yet we've all had our adversities. And I don't think without them, we would be in this level of conversation for sure, or this kind of bonding, and understanding of each other in this conversation. But because of that, there's a respect, there is that understanding. And for me to be in this with you guys, it's a beautiful thing because it makes it all worth it. All that shit is not in vain. All that stuff I didn't understand, whether I understand it or not, it had a purpose. And it all got, I can say, me here to be in this conversation with you two. So it's a pretty damn good day.
See, and that's all it takes. Just being present and allowing what feels good. Right?
Yeah. My experiences, to be honest with you, though, have been profound in a much kind of subdued way compared to both of you. Like, the first time I literally, this happened a few years ago. I've been trying to meditate, never could do, and somebody took me through a guided meditation on Skype with the sound bowls and everything. And I literally woke up like a little kid on Christmas. I was like, I did it. Mm-hmm. I was so like, I can't tell you how good it felt to be able to do that. And something happened, it's too long to get into, that very same day. And there's no way the association will not be drawn by me to say, the only reason that happened when it did was because of availability. And I was available to just kind of meditate, which just means open, right, and to do a process that I've never been able to do up to that point. But something else happened, which tells me, bingo, stay on the course, stay on point here. There's something to this. Don't just let this one get away. So I think you guys have had more profound experiences to, wherever it is you guys go in that dimension. I don't know really what train that is, but I know it's not the 7.
Yeah, and it's also a feminine energy as well, the divine feminine, where there's a deeper empathy that exists because of the type of conditioning that was served. But if you give yourself, and
do you think that when you say that, are you saying because you're both women that you have a better availability to that energy?
I would say yes. And I think that's why so much persecution has happened with women, right? Because women are just naturally empathic and naturally, they're naturally feelers, right? Where biologically the man was there to protect, right? So, yeah.
Okay.
But the thing is, if you continue surrendering, I'm sorry, Zoe, if you continue surrendering, Scott, then you can tap into your feminine divine, right? But you got to work through the masculine divine first and own that, right?
No, the reason I asked was because you were relating being female to the feminine energy. That's the only reason I was asking, just, to just clarify that, that there is a significance to that, of course, but there's also a difference between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Like every person has both, and we get into that with most guests in this thing anyway. But there is something to the fact that being female and diving into your feminine energy, and I don't know this firsthand. I've heard through the grapevine people talking that obviously that experience is going to be different than a guy would be able to have. Right. So that's all. All righty.
So guys, we've got about 5-ish minutes left. So just wondering whether there was like a real main message that you'd like to get out there, Melissa, or something that you'd like to leave with the audience today.
Sure. Trust your process, my loves. Just trust your process. Like, we're all being served adversity, excuse me. I'm thinking in Spanish. We're all being served adversity in some way, shape, or form through what we're all experiencing on a global level. No one's alone. So instead of fighting it, give yourself permission to just watch it. Give yourself permission to fall into it. If you need to cry, you cry. If you need to scream at the top of your lungs, you scream at the top of your lungs. If you need to have a conversation with someone and understand something, have that conversation with them. But most of all, have conversations with yourselves, guys. This is your time. This is your time to really get to know who you are. And then by knowing who you are, can you create space to actually know what you desire? Like, we're here to play. We're here to create. We're here to level up the consciousness. Like, we're here to quite frankly, to do whatever brings us joy, right? So the only way we can get to that space is if we walk our walk. And our walk is just looking at your stuff and loving your stuff. And like, Scott mentioned before, like knowing that your stuff was just there as a gift for you to level up, right? In your process. That's all. Nothing comes in vain. Everything comes exactly the way it needs to. So love yourself, take care of yourself, take care of those that you love, and just ride the wave. Ride the wave. The more you push away from the wave, right? The more the wave will tumble you, right? Ride it.
And stay away from processed food.
Yes, no processed food. And also pay attention. How much news are you watching? There's a lot of fear it's being fed. Okay, folks, so keep your eyes open, be discerning, right? You don't really got to know every 5 minutes how many patients and la. You don't. And if you do, check in. Why do I feel obsessed in order to keep going to something that's not serving me? Don't judge yourself. Just check in. Oh, that's curious that I have this pattern. And then continue unraveling, continue doing it. Or if you want a little more help, please contact me. I'll pass over my information to Zoe. And I'll be more than happy to offer a 20-minute quickie, a free consultation if you guys want to come on board, and we can go deep in what it is that you need, and perhaps we're a fit to work together. So, yeah.
Why don't you put that out now? Why don't you give, like, how would somebody get in
Sure.
touch with you from who just watched this and would be drawn to connect with you, work with you? What?
So I have my website is Faith Ramirez, RAMIREZ.com, or you can call me via cell. I also have WhatsApp, and it's area code 1-347-255-2559.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Melissa, for coming on and talking us today. It's been amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was beautiful being with you guys as well. I love spreading the love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. If anybody enjoyed what they seen today, please subscribe to our channel. It's Perspectives with Zoe and Scott. We need people to subscribe and build this community together so that we can have Melissa back and we can have more guests almost as good as her.
It's the queens, I know.
In the house, we're rocking. That's right. I can't thank you enough for your time and your generosity. So
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.